Good morning, everybody. God's blessings on you today. Glad you're tuning in again today as we are continuing to just faith this week. Just a little word for you. So last night on my Wednesday night Bible study, I've been teaching through the book of Exodus, and we came to chapter 25. This is right after God gave Moses the Ten Commandments. And right after that, he also gives him instructions for building the tabernacle. And God tells him in chapter 25, and I think it's about verse 9, he says, I want you to build me a tabernacle so that I can dwell among the people. I want you to build me a sanctuary so that I can dwell among the people. You see, the tabernacle and then later the temple, it was the visible presence that God was living among his people. And if you keep reading in that chapter, just a few verses later, he talks about the mercy seat. He tells him how to make it, and he says, I'm going to speak to you from between the cherubim on that mercy seat. I'm going to be right there. So that was the visible representation. The sanctuary, the tabernacle, was the visible representation that God was with his people. And so that's what it was for, many centuries, millennia. And then it was time for God to bring himself to bring salvation to mankind. So then he came in the form of his son, Jesus. He came in the form of a person. So God then dwelt among his people. John says, talking about Jesus, says, we beheld his glory as the only begotten Son of God, that the Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. He then became the tabernacle, the visible presence of God among us. So now, though, that Christ has died, buried, resurrected, risen again, so now how does God live among his people? Well, he lives now inside of his people. Now he inhabits his individual children, and then he inhabits them collectively as a church body. So this is the passage in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19. He says, do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and you are not your own? Paul says, don't you know that now your body is now the temple of the Holy Spirit, and he is in you. The presence of God now exists in this world by being in his people. What does that say about us? It says that you are the presence of God when you go to work. It says that you are the presence of God when you go to school. You are the presence of God when you go to Market Basket, when you go to the bank, when you go to the ball field. Wherever you go, whatever you're doing, you are the presence of God. So what does that say about how we ought to be acting? What does that say about how we should treat our bodies? What does that say about where we take our bodies? What does that say about everything that we do with our bodies? In fact, in the context of this passage, he's talking about fleeing or running away from sexual immorality, sexual temptation. He says, because your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, that you have been given from God. So understanding that you are now the presence of Christ in this world. You are now the presence of God. You are now the visible presence of God in this world. Makes quite a bit of difference on some of the decision making about how we should live, where we go, how we take care of our bodies, how we act whenever we're in public. You are the presence of God. Do you not know that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God, and that you are not your own? God bless you guys. Love y'all. Get out there in faith today. All right? Bye.